Hi, everyone. Mike from DynamicPoint. Thank you so much for joining. We'll give it a few more minutes here. Not that long, maybe a minute or so, just to let a couple more people come in, and then we'll get started. Today, we're going to be looking at our customer portal product in conjunction with Office 365. And specifically, the focus will be on order management, so just customer engagement within a portal. So we'll start here in about a minute or so. As we're going through this, if anyone has any questions, I know everyone's muted, but feel free to either chat them to me. I'll do my best to look at the chat window as I'm going through, or the question panel. So either of those, I'll do my best to take a look at. And thank you again for your time. All right, I have about a minute past the hour, so we're gonna say that we are good enough, and let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate your time. We have this scheduled for half an hour. I could probably get through it, maybe even a little quicker, as to give you some time back in your day. It'll be a quick overview of our portal in conjunction with Office 365. So with no further ado, once again, if you have any questions, for those of you who just joined, feel free to put it into the question section or the chat. I'll do my best to monitor both of those as we're going through it. And let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, just a quick introduction of who is DynamicPoint. So DynamicPoint, basically what we do is we create apps on top of Office 365. So you could say we're very much an app development company on the Office 365 framework. And the best way I could describe that, or the best analogy I suppose I've come up with over the years of doing it, is it's very similar to developing an app for your mobile phone. When you install an app on your mobile phone, which I'm sure we've all done in life, and ask you all those questions, can I use your camera, your location, or text and things like that we just probably say yes to. But all of those are, of course, using this platform that's provided by your mobile phone. So the app developer is integrating with all of that and leveraging the features of this platform. And we very much do that same thing, but on an Office 365 platform. So we are going to leverage that wherever we can to give us more functionality, just like an app developer on a mobile phone would. We've been around a little bit longer than Office 365 came out to be. So we used to create products on top of SharePoint, and about 6 years or so ago, migrated them all to Office 365. So we I guess, outdate Office 365 or predate it, but we were in existence as a SharePoint development company beforehand. Okay, moving forward. As far as our product lineup, we have an invoice automation application. We have a expense management. We're going to skip both of those today, and this is the product that we'll be showcasing in conjunction with Office 365. And the gist of this product is that it enables either a customer, vendor, or an employee portal using SharePoint Office 365. So Microsoft has introduced this concept several years ago of SharePoint being more than just an internal collaboration tool, but also a tool that you could use to collaborate with your customers and vendors. You could invite them in securely, and they introduced this concept of an external license that is, free and unlimited. So you could bring in a customer or a vendor to this SharePoint site, and I don't have to pay for that license. So they're, a managed user, and then I'm giving them permission, but it doesn't cost me anything extra. And what our app does is allows you to hook up to various information as it resides in other applications. So whether it's coming from your accounting system or a CRM or some other application, I can now bring that data into the portal and include that in this Microsoft provided extranet. So that's what we're going to be covering today. As far as, what are some of these objectives? From a customer side, I've listed some here. Honestly, a portal is one of those things that means different things to different people. And with the beauty of this platform and its, flexibility, you could support a lot of those different use cases. But from a customer side, sharing contracts and agreements, we're gonna have some examples of that today, managing their information, order entry, where we'll review that, inventory, we can take a look at that, payment processing, we can discuss that, help desk, all these different things of what I would want to enable with my customer on a portal, and basically giving them this 24/7 self-service access to this data so that I don't have to email it to them, or they don't have to call me or send me an email, or however they're requesting this details today is now at their fingertips. And that's really the basis of the portal, is the sharing of this information and giving them access to data that they are requesting or may need, but I don't have to proactively submit it to them or receive a call for them. They could go get it whenever they want. And the focus of today is not on vendor or employee portals, but there's also a whole set of things that I could do from those perspectives too, right? So it's really taking this information from your accounting system or from your ERP or from your CRM, or just information that lives in SharePoint, and enabling this collaboration using these portal technologies. So really quick, how does this portal app, work? So this little diagram is intended to illustrate how we're making those connections, right? So again, we're starting off with a SharePoint site, and this could be Office 365 or on-premise, and we're adding our app because there's this whole app model that allows me to add apps to a SharePoint site. And it's pretty simple. I could show you. You could just add an app, and then when I install the app, I get all the functionality of that app. And our app allows me to connect to data, right? So more often than not, it's coming from an accounting or an ERP application, and we are connecting to that data using the standard in the integration world known as OData. It's basically a standard for connecting to that data and rendering it in the portal. And of course, we're securing it, right? We're not, showing all customers all orders. We're showing just the ones that apply to them, that are applicable for their customer ID, et cetera. So we're securing this information, but the way to think of it is the portal is really just a window into this information. We're not replicating anything. We're not, storing your customer orders or anything like that. We're showing them in the system of record, which is more often than not this accounting and ERP product. It's really just a query into it. Now, depending on my audience and our focus today, we're looking at it from a customer perspective. I'm going to share customer pertinent information. I'm going to show orders, maybe quotes, invoices, contracts, all of the data in that system that is basically for my customers. And of course, there's a whole flip side of that for data for my vendors or my employees, right? Maybe, POs and shipment details and vendor invoices. There's a whole flip side of that, but today we're looking at it from a customer perspective. Now that I have this framework, Microsoft provides all these other tools that I could use in conjunction with this portal. So I could use the reporting tool, Power BI. I could create apps on Power Apps. I could generate workflows using Power Automate, and we'll show some workflows and things like that today. If I want to have forms, I could use Microsoft Forms, and all of these, tools that work in conjunction with the SharePoint framework can now be extended to give this portal that I'm providing to my customers more functionality, leveraging these products that I already own. So that's really the name of the game, is using these tools that I already have and providing this functionality, of which a lot of these products, I've talked to people, in fact, a call just this morning, that they didn't realize that they had access to all these tools, and that comes with their subscription. So a lot of this is already at your fingertips. Okay, demo agenda. Here's the things we're going to go through on the first part of our demo. So we're going to look at a portal, of course, right? I hope. And then we're going to look at it from an order perspective. So let's start with the very basic, and we'll start with viewing orders, editing orders, creating orders, etc. So I want a customer to come in and create an order. Now, one thing to note on this, is this an order like me creating an order, on an e-commerce site? It's not. It's not intended to be, an Amazon shopping cart, e-commerce type of experience. It's more geared towards like B2B organization where, yeah, I want to create an order, but I'm not looking for the whole e-commerce shopping cart experience. It's more of a form entry, if you will, than images and clicking on things like that. That's more geared towards e-commerce. So it's usually better suited to a B2B organization as opposed to someone who's selling to consumers. Maybe we want to generate some reports, right? So we want to generate a sales report, an invoice, things like that, generate some notifications based on my interaction in the portal. From there, we'll go into financials. Maybe I want my customers to see their payment status on their invoices, print invoices, generate statements, etc. So other interaction from a financial perspective. These, of course, are the very, very basic, and then we'll get into different types of companies that have different portal needs based on how they're interacting with their customers. So if you're more of a service organization, then the idea of service cases and seeing the status of existing requests comes into play. Or if you're performing more of jobs, maybe the idea of exposing jobs and the status and change requests becomes more applicable. So we'll look at both of those as well. Okay, so let's get out of PowerPoint. And we will look at our first customer portal here. And this is, again, SharePoint site, right? Being shared to my customers. I've applied some branding and I've created some calls to action for them. Again, as far as the deployment of this, it's pretty simple. If I go to the site contents, this user is not going to have access, but if I had access, I would see a little button saying add an app, and sure enough, our app has been added to the site, right? So that's really the only quote unquote, magic that I've done in addition to it just being a standard SharePoint site. So my calls to action here is I can look at sales orders, create new orders, look at invoices. I have some service order creation and things like that. I have the ability to create a return here, called out from contracts, manage my company information, manage my profile. I have a lot, right? And maybe for yours, you wouldn't want this much, and that's fine. I'm obviously showcasing, different options for you. But most people try to keep the portal pretty simple based on what it is that they want their customers to do. So maybe it's just the order entry or just returns or just the financial aspect, but of course I'm showcasing a lot of it today. I also have a reseller scorecard here that's being filtered. So I'm showcasing how a Power BI report can be embedded in a portal page and then pass parameters based on who's authenticating to this site. So my report here is being filtered based on me being the customer that has logged in. And that's the thing to note. All of these, portal sites are secure, right? So if I were to access this really quick in a incognito window, it's not a publicly facing site, right? I have to authenticate to this from using my customer ID or my email that you've shared this site with. So people will have to sign in. Scrolling down a little bit, I have some documents that I'm sharing with them so they could, download statement of work templates, as well as just a simple event feed here, telling them some upcoming updates and what's going on with the company. So like I said, I have a fair amount going on. First of all, look and feel of these sites. They're your sites, right? These are sites that you created in your Office 365 SharePoint tenant, and you get to make them look and feel how you want. One thing that Microsoft does provide for inspiration, I guess, is this lookbook site where they give you downloadable templates for portal sites, right? So I could go to these and click, different categories here, and I could download any of these templates and get started. So if one of these, is more appealing to you, you can most certainly start with that as opposed to using any example that I'm presenting. So a lot of options there in the look and feel of these portal sites. Okay, so let's go back to mine and let's start going into these details and what the portal product is basically doing here, right? So if I click on sales orders, we'll start off with that one. What that working on it is doing is querying the system of record, in this case, an accounting ERP application, and bringing back all of the orders that are applicable to this customer. So now I have visibility to all the orders in the system. So maybe I want my customers to see the status of it, whether or not it's released or open. Maybe I want them to dive into the details and be able to click on these and drill into line items and pricing and show tracking information and things like that. So this one is extremely simple, right? It is basically just a view only into the orders that are in my system for this customer. I haven't given them any edit access. I haven't given them any creation ability. It's just a window into those orders that exist. You'll also note I have a print icon here. What this print icon will do is it's going to call the underlying report from the ERP application and generate it in a PDF. So when it's in the PDF, it can now be, saved or printed directly from the system. So this isn't a report that we're delivering, it's just something that we're calling because we have those integrations with the reporting technologies offered by different systems, and we're allowing you to generate those reports on demand from the portal. So I'm going to go back. I see I have a quick question there. So like as I promised, I said I would go through any questions or do my best to take a pause. And the first question is, what is the difference between this and a Power App portal? And that's a great question, right? So a Power App portal, if you guys are familiar with that, is basically this technology that Microsoft bought out for it used to be what was a CRM portal, so specific to their CRM product that allowed you to connect to data that exists in CRM. And it gives you this ability to sort of configure a portal, assuming your data exists in Dynamic CRM or the Dataverse, and those are its strengths and the connectivity. There's a few differences, or actually a lot of fundamental differences between that approach and I suppose our portal, right? One is we're not limited to CRM or Dataverse as far as connectivity of the information. We are hooking up to basic endpoints, or what are known as REST web services, to various ERP applications and connecting with that data, right? And we have different connectors that we could use from a software company called, that's not what I was going for, but I could share it with you. That shows various drivers to all of the connectors that we have. So we could connect to all kinds of systems to get that information. So the second part of that is, the Power App portal is really just configuring some data that I want to show. It's sort of like this, form creation tool. It is not combined at all, with the SharePoint platform or Power Automate, right? It's from a workflow and things like that that you could integrate with the features that I'll show you here. So it is a good question. Like I said, there are, several fundamental differences, if you will, but they're really two different frameworks, if you will. So anyway, good question. And then, like I said, as far as the connectivity on that, that is 100% relying on that data residing in CRM or the Dataverse. Another one, just since I'm pausing, can you share your audience content of the portal to different customers? So that's another good one. There's several layers of filtering that are going on, right? One, if I just click on a sales order screen, I am of course only seeing the data for my customer, right? In other words, we're proactively filtering the data based off of the authenticated user. So in that case, can I share different information? Yes, right? The other ability there is that any icon or page in SharePoint I could restrict based off of group membership. So say some customers I want to give the ability to create a return and other customers I don't. You could also restrict their access just to see certain things, right? So there's quote unquote two parts of this. Is from a permission perspective, can certain customers see certain things? Sure, I could restrict that by group and group membership, right? And the second part of it is, even if I could see something, I should see a different subset of data than you should see, because of course I'm a different customer. And that is proactively being filtered as well. And we're using their login to associate that to a customer ID. So I logged in using my email, and in my ERP application, I have that associated to a customer ID that then gives me the ability to only show orders for that customer. Okay, let's move on. I'll take another break and answer any questions, but just for the sake of keeping it rolling. So that was a simple one, right? That was just looking at orders. Let's take that a step up and apply different permissions. Maybe in addition to viewing orders, I want to give my customers the ability to edit orders. So maybe if an order is just created and I have not, shipped it yet, and they want to change their, sell to or something like that. So they could go ahead and change their ship to address and then update it before it gets too far along, right? In other words, before I start shipping it or delivering the order, they could update information there. Maybe I want to give customers the ability to create orders. By creating an order, we are going to call the underlying ERP's business logic or web services to create this order as if I was creating it in the system, but of course in a very simplified manner. We're not going to give the user the whole order screen. So as you can see, as I went through that creation, it defaulted all my customer information for me. And I could add items now, and the items are going to come directly from my inventory and what has been assigned to this customer. So if I were to add an item, increase the quantity, it's going to call the logic on that item and then return with all of the detail I have configured, including my price list and things like that. So you can see we're not recreating an order entry screen here. We're leveraging the business logic of that underlying system to present that functionality in a portal in a very narrow, limited, hopefully simplistic fashion, right? We don't want to replicate the whole features of an accounting system. We just want to give access to very, user-friendly, simplistic features. So that was orders, right? Maybe invoices. Maybe I want to go into invoices and print those or view the detail on my open invoices. We could also integrate with payment services too. So if you want to process credit cards, we could actually use, your PayPal and Stripe and Authorize.net to present payment to in the portal. So if a customer wants to go ahead and reprint an invoice, I just click on that print icon. We're passing the parameters of whatever button they're picking there, and then we're generating that report again in a PDF. PDF is selected for a very critical reason, by the way. It's portable across all devices. So if I was doing this on a mobile device, I would see the same thing. Okay, so we went into orders. We looked at some of our invoices. Now other things, right? And again, you'll probably be tired of me showing examples here, but there's how I want to integrate with data is really up to you on the configuration of the portal. So if I want to create a return, I can most certainly create a return directly from the system as well. So I won't take you through it because it's a very similar process, but I could go ahead and create a return, add items to it, and then print maybe an RMA or directly from the portal as well. So different options there as far as the data that I want to expose. Moving on to some more of the financial things. So if I go into, say, my company information, I've included here the ability for them to not only look at their company details and edit them, but also generate a customer statement. So they could print their own statement, again, calling an ERP report directly from the ERP system and generating their statement in real time. So service orders, I'm going to go ahead and skip that for now, just different examples, right? So maybe managing my profile, again, just a different tidbit of data, what we call a service. I could create contacts, I could view and edit contacts, and those could go directly into either my CRM system or my ERP product, wherever I'm managing these contacts. Okay, some of the other things that I mentioned I would look at, right? So if I look at different portals that I have set up here, this one's more supplier based. I'm showing inventory or production orders. So just again, different touch points with that data because the portal is just allowing the configuration to that information. So here I'm showing inventory, so I could expose, how much is on hand and things like that directly from the portal. So that's more geared towards the supplier portal. If I go more into my job portal, then I'm looking at things like job status and subcontractors and change orders. So really it is a tool that is contingent on your business process, because if you're job oriented, that becomes important, where if I'm order, oriented, then that becomes important. So I could look at job status and even print, percentage of completion reports and things like that from the portal. Okay, so one thing to note, as I'm clicking around and doing all this activity on the portal, you better believe we could track it, right? And we could generate workflow based off of what's going on. So as I'm doing these things, I'm generating myself either approvals or notifications that are saying, what's being updated in the portal. So this is the sell to city I changed, which you can see is being highlighted here. I changed it from Dallas to Los Angeles, and it's being highlighted in red. I submitted a new order, so I generated a new email for that, etc. Right? So all of the things that are occurring in the portal could use to generate notifications. Okay, moving forward to the next part of our demo. So the next part is, as you start understanding what's available in the portal, you could begin using these tools for business automation. So at the very basic level, a portal is there for collaboration and reporting, but I could start using workflow to automate entire business processes. Some of those examples that I'll show you a contract renewal process. I also have vendor onboarding. We'll focus on the top one just because we're looking at customers today. But what this is going to allow me to do is look at a contract that's expiring and choose to renew it. And it's going to kick off a workflow and approval process and hopefully showcase, some of the capability of this business automation. So let's get out of here. Let's go to my, again, my customer portal, and let's look at my contracts. So when looking at my contracts, I've included a expiration date. And obviously I'd want to send my customers a notification that it's expiring. But let's say they want to go into one of these and click to renew, right? So here's one that started, but it doesn't have an expiration associated to it. So I'll click to renew this. You see here, it gave me a message. You'll receive an email with further instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And what that's done is it's kicked off a workflow, and that workflow is leveraging Power Automate. And you can see here, in addition to calling Power Automate, it's also sent me a DocuSign contract. So now I have this contract that's been sent to me saying, would you like to renew? And by opening up this contract, I now have my renewal form, which I just used our end user license agreement for the sake of renewal. But I'm going to go ahead and sign it and say, of course, I want to renew, right? And finish it. And by me completing this from a customer perspective, this document is saved back to SharePoint, stored in a library. And in addition, I've kicked off an internal workflow. So again, if I go to my email here, I could see I've received a notification for an internal review asking, do you want to approve this? And of course, I could click on it and look at the detail of whatever that customer filled out on this contract, because now it's captured in SharePoint and it is an electronic document. And if I were to go back to my email here, I could approve or reject it. So I could say, sure, this looks good. And after this approval is complete, it's going to update the underlying expiration date in the ERP product of that contract. So I'll give it a second here, but you can see my field's still blank. I should receive here a notification, right? Congratulations, your contract has been approved for another year. So I just have a year term associated to me. And I, gave them a link. But if I go in here, remember this page has been open. If I refresh it, I would expect to see the underlying data updated in the ERP product with the new expiration date. So I just made it a year term, so the new expiration date is a year from now. So hopefully that makes sense, right? You could take that and then use that to manage business processes as well as the collection of documents and electronic signatures. So I know I'm coming right about at time now, so I'll start wrapping it up. Different success stories that we've done, we've done order entries and invoice fulfillment status. We've done vendor onboarding and the collection of contracts and documents, both from a customer and vendor perspective. We've done invoice payment and fulfillment details if you're more of a fulfillment type organization, as well as service and equipment and things like that. So different examples of how the portal is being used for real live customer implementations. The benefits, obviously, we're going for self-service, savings, and increased efficiency, as well as just improved relationships with our customers and streamlining our process. And again, I cannot take credit for inventing this concept. It's very much being provided by Microsoft, and they have provided various readings of which I'll send out the URLs in case you want to see their documentation associated to it. And that was it that I had. I see I have more questions coming in here. Are we using Azure B2B for the invitations? And the short answer is you can. Azure offers a B2B invitation that gives access to resources, including SharePoint. The one special thing about SharePoint is it had the ability to share even before Azure B2B came along. So you could also use SharePoint standard quote unquote sharing where I could share a site with anyone. But you also have the ability to use the B2B technology because as Microsoft introduced it, they extended that functionality for SharePoint, but they didn't take away the existing features of sharing SharePoint. So that was it. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. I know that was quick, but hopefully it gives you some concept of what's available from not only a collaboration perspective, but also from a business automation and workflow. So I thank you all for your time and have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you joining. Bye now.